Meeting to order the Conservation Commission Inland Wetlands and Watercourse Agency. February the 7th, and we have a full panel today. So item 2, new application to receipt and determination of significance. We have application CC number 23-03 of Earthlight Technologies LLC, applicant Stephen Sepulveda. Thank you. Owner for the installation of a 1,050 square feet solar rack on wetlands at Long Highwood, Assessors Map G13 block 142 lot 003C. Simsbury. Good evening. You want to identify yourself for the record?
Yeah, just stay here. So I'm Stephen Sepulveda.
I think it would be. I think these mics do pick the things up better, so I would come up if you don't mind.
I wasn't sure. Again, first time we do this.
Mrs. Boulder, for you. So I did just put 3 maps together just to help for kind of location and where we are. So this is, I mean, this is obviously approximate. The applicant submitted, a little bit more detailed plans, but again, the blue check is about where the solar array would be if you overlay the town wetland layer that you see in brown there. Then again, kind of an aerial shot for the entire residential parcel. Again, the town layer, and the applicant submitted with the deep layer I added on here. So again, it's if you look at the town layer, it's half and half. Look at the deep layer, it's wholly within wetland soils.
And this house was built prior to the wetlands regulations. Was 87?
87 or 86.
Is it yeah.
So my name is Stephen Sepulveda. I'm the owner of One Highwood in Simsbury, and I'm here to get approval to build the solar panel installation. I believe that you guys have received a packet from Earthlight Technology. They've also provided me today with some more formal PE drawings of the actual foundation and how it's going to be mounted. I have 5 copies. I didn't realize you guys were all going to show up, so I'm going to pass those out. And I also have 3 copies of the one that was emailed out. I think you have it on yours. Can you guys have that? So,
And I can make more obviously.
we can pass it around too.
Sure, it'll be.
It's pretty simple.
And I'll email it to you before next meeting.
Basically illustrating there's not even going to be concrete or
Right. You'll get files. So, right.
so it may be hard to see here, but the solar installation is,
Do you want me to bring up your?
yes.
Is that better?
There we go. So solar installation is just, what is that? East of the fence, and there's an outbuilding, which was like an enclosed sunroom. And so the solar installation will be built there. And instead of trenching all the way back to which it's hard to see, to the front of the house where you'll have the photovoltaic disconnect, it'll actually follow a very short trench, so very limited, digging or anything. And then that will go along that deck towards the house. So again, trying to reduce trenching or any impact. But where the solar panels currently are is grass, as in not natural grass, but landscape grass. And in an area, again, trying to reduce the impact from the view for the streets, but also maximize the light that it can see. So the power generation. All in all, we worked with Earthlight on the suggestion for the sizing. We worked with Earthlight on the suggestion for the location. And this was the best portion that we could find. Also the pond back there, which is where probably the wetlands start. The pond, and then even further, which is outside of our land, is like swamp. The pond itself is man-made. It was built during the construction of the house. Any questions or concerns that I can help with?
So I'm just gonna ask, so the area's already been disturbed, constructed and.
Yeah, I think that it certainly, the applicant's house, the house to the north, the house, so there's been obviously
significant
disturbance and construction.
Yeah, of course, okay. I just wanted to clarify,
Yeah.
so thank you.
As I said, this was a house that was built prior to the
Yeah.
wetlands
Yeah.
regulation.
And again, remember your duty tonight is to make a finding whether it's a significant activity, and then, either schedule for action or for a public hearing.
I'm just curious, the area north and around the pond, is that mowed grass as well?
Sorry, north and
Well,
around,
north of where the panel, well, I don't know which is north.
Up in the corner.
Above, yeah, the corner where the pond is in the area.
no, so it's harder to see, I wonder if you can, use your mouse or. But towards so if you look, sorry.
Hang on a sec. The mouse is easier to use when I have
Yeah,
this.
so just south of that, there's a fence and everything past that, so that whole diagonal line there is basically left to grow, and so we have natural weeds and all the different flora, fauna. Lots of bears.
Yeah, there's a fence line here. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Here.
Short wooden fence,
And do you use that?
and then there's I'm sorry, do
Do
we
you
use?
use that area between the fence and then what's proposed to be the solar panels?
Between the fence, so where the solar panel, they had it listed, the original owners, I've been there about 2 years, as the football field. And so it's basically a field that's mowed. And so for this, we would build the panels and then put in likely rocks to reduce any of the erosion due to any runoff. Plus the grass, we don't want it's hard to see, there is like 2 willow trees on each side.
Is there gonna be any tree trimming or clearing? On the pictures, there's a couple of big trees.
No, so that's one thing, we selected it in a way that we didn't have to do any tree trimming or removal. They did say that if we had certain areas that we wanted to, they would have to, but for this area, it's kind of nice because it again blocks it from the neighbor view and disturbances, things like that. I didn't think about the wetlands, I did not know that until we had the permits.
The excavation sounds kind of interesting, because of it's all solid construction, is Earth worried about the runoff from the solar panels, like from a heavy rain and washing things out?
They're not worried about it, and we get actually a tremendous amount, it's hard to see that this is actually on a slope, so everything, is it? Yeah, I get everything, but some, I guess, east of us, or just, some other houses, they're all much higher up, and so everything flows down naturally that direction. In fact, right now, if you were to go, if there's thaw and you walked on it, it's very spongy. You can see there's a lot of water flowing constantly through there.
So no one's worried about just collecting a lot of water from the solar cell and just dumping it on one edge.
No, and that's what we talked about, basically putting in some like aggregate or rock to help as that falls in. It's not going to like dig a trench or anything. But it all flows, everything seems to naturally flow kind of towards that pond area.
Yes, I would like to see more plants around the pond. And if that's not gonna be used for a football field, you might consider putting some native plants in that area that won't shade it, with shrubs or something like that, so you don't have to mow it, but it would benefit the pond.
That's actually part of I didn't realize our plan is to let certain things like clovers and other things overcome, because the grass is, it's a pain to mow anyway,
Yeah.
but it's again, not used as a football field, it's just, so we're,
One of the alternatives is mow once a year, that'll keep down the trees and the shrub, woodies, but would be less maintenance and better.
I'd love to see, I'm just curious because of the neighborhood, I'm still somewhat new to Simsbury and I've already been in trouble for having a boat temporarily parked in my yard, and I don't have it anymore, but so I've always been worried about what do my neighbors, like, is there any legal ramifications to having natural lawns, or is it?
I hope not. Yeah, good. I mean, if you mow around it and put a statue in the middle, it looks intentional and maintain, I mean, you're mowing it once a year, I mean, it's in the back section.
Is it part of the housing association or, I mean,
No.
asking questions not germane to,
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
but,
No, these are things that I agree with you though, if that's something I can do, I just haven't done the research, and so I'm
I would,
cautious of changes here.
I would make it a stipulation, but given that this whole site would probably be wetland at some point, the more plants get in there, you might look right up.
Mhm.
But you know, it's great to have less.
No, I would love to have a reason to, so thank you. We could write that as a allow natural. If I gotta get a letter that says do not mow more than once a year, I'd be very happy.
That would be the stipulation, but you'd be able to show it to your neighbors.
Is there a reason why you're not putting it on your roof?
Yes, so we recently, it's funny, I bought the house 2 years ago, expecting about 5 years left on the roof. And so we recently used Rhinoback roofing here in Simsbury to replace the roof. That was quite expensive. So two reasons is that the solar panels on the roof would not provide enough. Our roof isn't sloped or facing well enough to give us the full capacity that we need for the house. It's quite a large house, so we use a little bit more electricity than I'm used to. And then the other part is that since the roof is brand new, within 6 months or so, any penetrations from a solar panel installation would void my new 50-year warranty or 30-year warranty. So we really hesitant to put that on the roof after putting a brand new beautiful roof on it. So. And the reason we went with Earth Lights, they're local here in Connecticut. They are used to working with the cities and also the stipulations. We did have companies offer rooftop installations. However, they were mostly in like South Carolina. That kind of worried us about what they knew about the local climate and sun.
So just remember what your threshold is. The finding for a public hearing is that the activity may cause significant impact to the wetland. If not, then you just move it for action and find it not a significant activity. Then we schedule it for 2 weeks.
Does anyone have any other questions? Let's make a motion.
I make a motion, this is not a significant activity, we move to address it in 2 weeks.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you on the 21st.
Is that the public hearing?
It won't be a public hearing, but they're scheduled for action on the 21st.
I see, okay.
No public hearing then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The public hearings, the third item on our agenda is public hearing, but we go, we're holding that application number 22-39 for 446 Hot Meadow Street and Vessel Holdings LLC, and postponed until a future date to be determined. General Commission business minutes for January 17th. Are there any corrections, changes, additions?
Yeah, actually, believe it or not, I have it. So one of the points that Mr. Waters made, that's not recorded in here, was that he felt that that there had been no ability to have any public comment before it came to us, like the entire process had been done. And then this is the only first time he felt he could speak about it. And we never really resolved that at the time, whether there had been other opportunities during that process, but I felt that was something they definitely said, it's not in the minutes. And I don't know what the answer to that was.
Mr. Waters talking about the trail.
That's right.
The trail.
Yeah, and one of the things he started right when he started, he said, you know, this is an interesting plan, here's my concerns, but one of my biggest concerns is there was no ability in the process to speak about before it got to this point, where everyone's trying to approve it. And I didn't know, I didn't have an answer.
So I don't either have an answer for you. I mean, that is a project that initiates itself out of the engineering department and public works and town administration and board of selectmen. I don't know or think that there's kind of a required public input process while it could be something we should do as part of kind of project development, but no, I don't think there is my answer.
Yeah, right, so I think my concern with the minutes is that the minutes are reflecting that piece.
Yeah.
And then my second part is that I actually thought that he had a very legitimate I wouldn't say complaint, but that was a comment. And then if we're starting to think about what that next part of the path should look like or whatever, the process should be changed to have some of that input before it gets to, gets around. So
No, I mean, that was the scheduled public hearing. That's when you come and make your comment.
Yeah, no, I
I'm
think Charles is asking, not that there should be more input for this body, but was there a general opportunity for the neighborhood to talk to the department, town engineering or other town members involved in developing the project?
They seemed kind of like surprised by the whole. Not surprised, but it was at the 11th hour and there's no way to stop it
So
or add any comment or what have
I'm not sure that's entirely true. I
you.
think.
That's what I got.
I think anecdotally, the town has had conversations with some members or maybe individual property members along that stretch, but I don't think it was organized.
Right, so as long as it's reflected in the minutes, and then perhaps it's something that the town staff can take under consideration for such projects.
Yes.
With those changes to the minutes,
Yeah, one more.
any of the,
On line 61, I think Joe did the motion on the application.
Yes.
You have me as taking that
okay.
motion.
Anything else? So with those amendments, do we have a motion to accept the minutes of January?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Okay.
Agent actions. For application.
Oh, yeah, we do have one, that's in your packet tonight. It was a, 11 Climax Road. It was a generator and LP tanks in the upland review area. The new generator and the tanks were being replaced. And it was, all of that was right around the house at about 82 feet from the wetland boundary. So we thought it was appropriate to approve as an agent approval.
All right, the next item is another. Conservation business, POCD.
So you may have other things to talk about on this, but I was just going to report if some of you, I think a number of you had a chance to attend the community meeting on January 30th. We had about by my estimated head count, we had about 102 citizens attend. We kind of walked them through some exercises and got a presentation from the consultant and kind of walked us through what priorities and things that were identified. But I was fairly pleased and fairly thrilled that we had so many folks that come out on a cold winter night, and I thought it went well.
We had five members of this commission were there.
Boards and commissions were very well represented. I thought that was great. I mean, most of the planning commission members were there. Half the zoning commission was there. I think that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good meeting. And I know this is halfway through the time period where the POCD needs to be reviewed, the 10-year period. And I think it was interesting. I thought the open space was broken into so many different spots, natural resources, and there were many different ways you could look at it. But the number one issue for the people who turned out, again, turned out to be open space, which was reflected in the survey that was done for the open space in Parks and Rec. That open space continues to be a high priority for the town, and for the citizens. So to that end, it's our opportunity to, in reviewing the POCD, put in our comments at this point. I know originally it wasn't, the new review wasn't really, the planning department or the planning commission didn't really think to address some of the conservation issues. There were some other things that Joe, you can speak to that, since you're on that.
You remember, it was the scope is based on kind of a budget, yes. And it's a limited update, yes. And but But as new issues come up throughout the process and we talk to folks and talk to stakeholders, those issues can come to the forefront.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the issues were just figuring out what has been done, and what hasn't been done. You know, which, you know, you're supposed to go back and checklist everything, so, but I would think we could introduce new material, in which I think it's important to do, obviously, because of the way that survey or our planning bucks, or whatever those were called, the money,
Yeah.
which was a great idea, because, you know, because you had to do it as like a weighted, you know, weighted thing, so, you know, it's open space, and, you know, there was another survey done a few years ago where people talked about, and I think it was for tourism. And, you know, the number one thing that residents in particular enjoyed about the town was that there was so much green space to hike in and, you know, do those types of activities. So I think, you know, the POCD should reflect that.
So this is our opportunity. I know in previous years, when it's come before the Conservation Commission, it's sort of been almost a, you know, very more than a rough draft. And so we add on to the end. This time I was hoping we could be more proactive and get our comments in earlier in the drafting process. And to that aim, I did go through the POCD, and I don't know if anyone, I know Charles, you said that you have some comments that you wanted to add.
And I think Dr. Bate gave
I
some
did.
comments as well.
Oh, yes, you
Yeah.
did too, yes. So, I'm trying to figure out what's the process, if the comments could be sent to George and then sent back out to us, I could combine them, or have specific comments about some of the changes that I suggested. You know, just at the operating draft, we can address them here.
Yeah, so I didn't have any issues with the suggestions that you had.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at this, it's kind of a series of general sort of statements and then some tactical things in each one. And so you were actually adding on to those.
Yeah.
The pieces that I was interested in was much more towards sort of the mission statement part at the top. Some of the, you know, as we have more committees sort of working on these things, and there's sort of this idea of like, how do we get best practices out there versus regulation versus, you know, who's taking the responsibility for these things? If we're asking for data because we're the Department of Agricultural, part of the agricultural lease coming from someplace, then we have to have a policy for what we're gonna do with it, or how we're gonna evaluate. And I've seen lots of these things. I've never seen any of those put into the proposals. And it seems to me that's kind of a ground, that's kind of like a ground rule. The other thing is that I thought that there wasn't enough discussion, particularly around connecting open spaces, the pollinator pathway, et cetera, with some regionalization with the associated towns.
Yeah.
Some of these things are not going to be solved just by Simsbury making an effect, and none of that was reflected at a top level. And I just felt like adding a couple of those parts in would give a context for all the other things that we're doing to improve the tactics.
That was one of the big, at the meeting, I was thinking that we needed to look. We always look within our borders, we need to look outside. That's something I talked to Glenn Chalder, the consultant.
I said the same thing to him after the meeting.
Yeah.
About the regionalization, because a lot of these things are impacted there, and the bike trails are a good example, and all these things. And it's just not reflected in there. The other piece that I was really interested in was, there was a lot of, when this thing was put together, there was a lot of projections of where Simsbury was gonna be. And I would, you know, at this point in time, and I'd love to know how far out of whack we are with the changes that happened in the housing and some of these other places. And that's some really hard data that we ought to be getting before the next one goes out. And I just didn't know if that was part of the consultant's job or not.
It is to update demographics, so,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Because I would like to see that as we're putting in some of these other pieces. That was what I was supposed to write up, but I never made time, so that's it.
I'm hoping is that we can get this to planning in a timely, I think
I think the early, the planning, the planning commission is not, they have not started with any drafting of
someone.
of new document.
Somewhere, someone told me May was a loose deadline, was it loose deadline, a hard deadline, any deadline? Does planning have any deadline?
Yeah, we have, I mean, we have a calendar and a schedule. I think
Yeah.
we hope to be done in the early fall to be completely done.
Okay.
So we're really just gonna start
So,
with revisions based on the public input that we've received so far.
so the idea, my point, let's try to get it off
And now.
our books. Rather than, on every 2 weeks, having it on the agenda.
Yeah.
If those of you who have reviewed it, if you have any additional things to add to it, such points that we need to include in our letter, or whether it's in the POC,
I just pieces, so all I'll do is I told you most of it, I'll finish off the last little bit and then
Okay.
send it out.
all right,
And then you get everything to think about that.
good. And then we can incorporate either in the POCD or in our company letter to planning. Then maybe we can get that done within a month or so. And hopefully it'll get off our.
I'll get it off my desk and you guys can do that.
All right. And if anyone else wants to add to it, that'd be great. Otherwise, we'll look to send it off in a month's time, and that will give planning lots of time to digest our insights, suggestions.
Yes.
Good.
So when I've got a number of, comments or different ideas for it too, that we should, once those are all finalized, send them to.
Send them to me and then I'll send them back out.
Yeah, and we can sort of massage it all together in one document and then send it on with the letter.
Yeah.
Work with you on.
Yes. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, excellent. Yes, but it's nice to have that done. And at some point, we can bring up, I think I said in one of the meetings that I had put together, the dark sky initiative. That was one of the things in the POCD that had been identified as an action item for the zoning. And I had put together the Stanford and Newtown had some regulations. And I think I sent it to you.
You did?
Did the letter, did it go to the lawyer, the town lawyer, or did anyone look at it, or?
No, I think you sent it to me and I think we sent it to everybody else. And if we didn't, then I'll resend it.
Yeah, but it's just.
The question is how do we, what's the mechanism for getting the zoning commission to prioritize or agendize any suggestions that come from different groups?
That was right. How do we just send a letter and say, hey, here's an idea that you.
I think that's a start, a way to do it. Yes. I even think that, the planning commission on their own have some kind of agenda items that they'd like perhaps the zoning commission to look at as well. So
Yeah.
you're not alone.
No. So, and I know it's an action item, but I would think it would help to have, suggestions from other towns to look at.
Yep.
Maybe we can speed it up that way, and that way we fulfill our role to say this needs to be done.
But even when we get that done, we're gonna have to do something about the follow-up for that. So, I mean, just pushing it over is gonna take a while to make sure that you build it to, some of the best practices like we're doing.
Yeah. No, there are best practices in the regulations. So that it's up, that they have been tasked with doing that, and we're just trying to nudge that process. All right. And if anyone else has anything that they want to see the commission take up in the upcoming months, let us know. All right, that's all for that. The conversation, there's a planning and community development department updates.
I don't have any updates.
All right, well, that leaves us to item 8, which is adjournment. So,
So moved. Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, excellent. Finally, that was quick.